you look the same as you did 15 years ago when we were married. And she said, that's because I'm wearing the same dress. The time on Broder today is 2.5 hours, and GCI went as high as 57 1/8 this week. December the 11th, 1993, Saturday, 4:15 p.m., the Broder log. The files are in good shape. Lots of backs to use up from that library research that we did a week ago. Here it is. It's really good, very, very good information. But it is a lot of reading. But it's really good. That was from the Pace Law Library. And so we're getting ready to make a motion, as I told you. And this is the service that we did over again. Personal service on Sherlock and personal service on Paulson of the summons with notice and the complaint, the antitrust complaint. There were no Broder articles in the newspaper Monday, and we have to have the affidavit of service notarized and submitted on the 5 that Omar Hernandez. We read 5 pages about summary judgment, and by Monday these will be done. And the time on Broder today is 3/4 an hour, and we are looking at the magistrate's book again that tells you the duties of a magistrate judge as opposed to a judge like Judge Cattell or Judge Broderick or Judge Bryant. A woman went to a lawyer to get a divorce, and the lawyer says, well, do you have a grudge? She says, no, we have a carport. And the lawyer says, well, do you have grounds? She says, about 1.5 acres. And the lawyer says, well, does he beat you up? She says, no, I'm up a half an hour before he is every day. And the lawyer says, well, why do you want a divorce? And the woman says, we have a communication problem. On December the 12th, 1993, the third Sunday in Advent, 1.5 hours today on Broder today to do the logs file, set up the errands at Pace to look up the magistrate judge duties in the United States Code. 9.5 hours for the week. We read 5 pages of index pages on dismiss and summary judgment. Files are fine. It is a pain to use up the backs of the Pace research. Pace should have copy machines that copy on both sides the way the White Plains Library does. In the White Plains Library copy machines, you push duplex, and then the machine inside turns the paper over for you, and then you push for your next copy, and it comes out on two-sided. So the Pace University should have that too. And marriage is a grind, Eleanor says. You make the beds, you wash the dishes, you take out the garbage, and in 2 weeks you have to do it all over again. So I think you're up to date on what happened on Glendora versus Broder on the week of December the 6th, 1993. Of the personal service on Sherlock and Paulson. Here's a noter from the order of reference to a magistrate judge. The case has been moved from Judge Broderick to Judge Fox, the magistrate judge, Glendora versus Gannett Company. And this is dated December the 7th, 1993. That's Pearl Harbor Day. And here is a letter from Judge Broderick pursuant to a referral order from the Honorable Vincent L. Broderick, to whom this case is assigned. You are directed to appear for a conference in the above reference matter on December 30th, 1993 at 9 a.m. This is from Judge Fox. Thank you very much. Very truly yours, Merrill Fregala, Secretary to Honorable Mark D. Fox, United States Magistrate Judge. This is typically Gannett. This is a story about a man, somebody owed him money, they didn't pay, and so they gave him property in Greenberg. Property's worth $125,000, but then a local court ruled that the mortgage wasn't valid. So naturally the man wanted the decision appealed, and he left it up to his lawyer to appeal it, and his lawyer was arguing with somebody else whether it should be in state court or whether it should be in federal court, and they lost the time to appeal. The time to appeal, 30 days, and they lost it. Now this is one reason that I won't pay for a lawyer. I would never let a thing like that happen. But the thing of this story is good old Gannett flunking the basics. Gannett doesn't tell you the name of the lawyer. That's journalism 101. Who, when, where, why, what. No, but Gannett doesn't tell you the name of the lawyer. This is a case that's very similar to the case of Glendora versus Gannett, lawsuit 3. This is the trial of a garbage hauler who is charged with antitrust, and that's what I charged Gannett with. So complete and sudden was the elimination of competition that 3 school districts found that Wasteway refused to provide them with service, and the field was less open to A1. A1 is the company that's being sued. Here's another quote. This wasn't done in the back room of some bar with cigar smoke. This was done in the confines, in the atmosphere of a law office. Did I tell you the reason that I would think that some people have lawyers is that lawyers can lie better than pro se's. This is what happened on Glendora versus Gannett on the week of December 6, 1993. Okay, everybody, here's what happened on Glendora versus the DHCR, the New York State Division of Housing and Community Renewal. 12/6/93 Monday, videotape was on TV about Coppola's bad decision on the first DHCR case. It was on TCI, 21 towns in Westchester. There will be more of it on TV in Yonkers, where Coppola comes from. Glendora bought an RJI Friday, and hope it is not Coppola. December the 7th, an RJI is a request for judicial intervention. That is, you have to pay $75 to get a judge to take the case. December the 7th, 1993, Tuesday, Pearl Harbor Day. Our people died for a court system that is in such terrible disarray. The judge was Rosado. Glendora asked him to recuse, and he did. Garion did not get reelected. Hooray. There has been no time to videotape what happened last week on the DHCR. Why does Joe play his wedding videotape backwards so he can see himself walk out of church a free man? The Donovan appeal was perfected Monday and shipped to the appellate division. The clerks say that Glendora does beautiful work. The Fredman record on appeal was started this morning. The first 50 pages are done. When that is done, Glendora will start the Coppola 1 appeal, the first Coppola bad decision, and after that Glendora will start the second bad decision, the appeal of that. The time on DHCR today is a half an hour. On Wednesday, nothing, Advent service and lunch. December 9th, Thursday, videotaped updates for the television program, but there were none to do on the DHCR. On the 10th, Friday, nothing. Tomorrow morning, DHCR Coppola decision 1 will be on TV in Yonkers. Did you hear about the woman who was married 4 times? The first time she was married, she married a banker. The second time, she married an actor. The third time, she married a minister. And the fourth time, she married an undertaker. That's 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready, and 4 to go. On Saturday, we write that the appellate division numbers came today for Coppola 1, DHCR, and Coppola 2, the William Street one. And here they are, folks. This comes from the appellate division in Brooklyn. Martin Brownstein is the clerk. And while you're looking at it, here are the 3 new Supreme Court justices, Owen, Sherwood, and Scarpino. Scarpino I monitored many times. He comes from Mount Vernon. I monitored him when he was in county court, which is the criminal court. Glendora is glad she did not get Coppola for a judge for her new lawsuit filed on Veterans Day. But now, Donovan has been chosen as a judge, and Glendora asked Donovan to recuse himself, and he said no, he's going to keep the case. Well, I don't think he should keep the case. Donovan lives in Harrison. He was the town justice there. At the same time, his father was the chief of police. And one of the defendants in my case is a Harrison policeman, Andrew Larkin. Another defendant is the son of a Harrison policeman. And so I think further, Donovan should recuse himself for the same reasons that Rosado recused himself, that I complained all over the state how bad I thought Donovan's work was. Dear, you look the same as you did 15 years ago when we were married. Wife, that's because I'm wearing the same dress. Now, here's a big case that's before Judge Cowie. This is a criminal case, antitrust, or maybe it's civil. It could be, and it's about a garbage hauler, A1. And 3/4 an hour today, Sunday, to get the logs up to date, file and videotape the record on for TV. The Fredman record on appeal is done up to 250 pages, folks. It is going to be big, and it is going to be expensive to make 12 copies of for the appellate division. Now, we will have to get out the Amicone case, and that's the Garayan decision. We'll have to get out that brief and record on appeal to copy Monday tomorrow for the appellate division. Thank heaven Garayan is out. We need to get some more of them out. The time on the DHCR this week is 1 3/4 hour, and Eleanor says that housework is such a grind. You have to make the beds, and then you do the dishes, and you take the garbage out, and then in 2 weeks you have to do the whole thing all over again. What happened on Glendora versus Lydia Gallo on the week of December the 6th, 1993. Glendora videotaped for an hour on Tuesday about the crooked $1,250. That was Judge Holden, Lydia Gallicano, John Ornberger. Judge Ingracia wasn't there to sign the order to show cause, and the Administrator of Finance, Westchester County. Lydia editing has been done, and no Lydia telecasting has been done, 1 hour. On December the 10th, 1993, Friday, a half hour on Lydia, the logs, paginating, the files. The files were all down cellar except the current one, but the file box is too crowded. Another file box may have to be started for Lydia, and it's this long already. Did you hear about the woman who got married 4 times? The first time she married a banker, the second time she married an actor, the third time she married a minister, and the 4th time she married an undertaker. That's 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready, and 4 to go. Glendora won a breach of contract case in Judge Frea's court. A White Plains business contracted for an ad on WNBC TV and then breached. The transcript of judgment came today. On December 11th, 1993, Saturday, do you remember what happened 1 year ago? We had all those rains and all that wind. Oh, it was terrible, and it uprooted the poor tree. The tree lost its footing, and it fell over, and it hit the Con Ed wires, and there wasn't any heat, and there wasn't any light. And then the next day, after that December the 11th, Friday, it snowed. And I think it snowed something like 7 inches. Do you remember all that? A year ago, that was the storm of the century. Well, it looks like Lydia is all done for 2 years, but no, that can't be true. Ornberger has to get in his respondent's brief for Holden, and I don't think he did that. And the Holden appeal was perfected sometime around the 1st of November, wasn't it? The 8th of November? So I don't think he made that, because I think he only has 15 days to do that. So that looks like it's going to be a default. Now then there's the Ruskin brief. Wasn't that perfected around 4 or 5 days later, November 15th? And so if today is December 12th, we haven't heard, he may have missed that one too. Lawyer, a woman went to a lawyer to get a divorce from this man, and the lawyer says, well, do you have a grudge? And the woman says, no, we have a carport. And the lawyer says, well, do you have grounds? She says, about 1.5 acres. And the lawyer said, well, does he beat you up? She says, no, I'm up a half an hour before he is every morning. The lawyer says, well, why do you want a divorce? And the woman says, we have a communications problem. On December the 12th, 1993, Sunday, the third Sunday in Advent, a quarter of an hour at the desk, a quarter of an hour to videotape the record for TV, 8.5 hours this week on Glendora versus Lydia Gallicano. And tomorrow we have to send the Amicone brief. That was Glendora versus Philip Amicone, the commissioner, the building commissioner in White Plains, and Mayor Del Vecchio, and the White Plains Building Department. And those two are gone. That is good. Eleanor says the housework is such a grind. You make the beds, you do the dishes, you take the garbage out, in 2 weeks you have to do the whole thing over again. Mailing number 39, default judgment number 3821, Greenridge Avenue, December the 6th, 1993, week, Glendora versus Walsh, Alpucci, and Larkin. On Monday, there was no time to work on wall. The appeal had to be perfected. The wall mailing had to go out. 2:51 p.m., James was noisy with companions, so was Kevin. Glendora went out soon after. John Porzio shouted at James about not ruining the lawn, then Roberta shouted at John. She got hysterical and went off, it is reported to me. Glendora asked Judge Rosado to recuse himself. He did. Now Judge Donovan is on the case. 10:10 a.m., John Porzio was here. Diana Williams called, and Glendora told Diana that Walsh, Alpucci, and Larkin got a lawyer. Glendora's lawyer knows these lawyers. They were former assistant district attorneys. Their White Plains address is a lie. They are actually in Elmsford. The wall videotapes are playing in Manhattan. They are playing in Harrison. TCI will not cablecast the first ones because of the rank filth of Nella Alpucci, Daniel Walsh, Roberta Walsh, and Theo Alpucci. December the 7th, 1993, Tuesday, Pearl Harbor Day. There has been a noticeable cease and desist. It is due perhaps to the lawyer who told them that this stuff is serious, or to the police, Lieutenant Quinn and Eric Fisher. Both these people, for the moment, are acting grown up. The wall videotapes, not both these people, but these people, because there's 7 of them. The wall videotapes were distributed to 2 more companies for cable casting. There was no time to do any other wall work. On December the 8th, 1993, Wednesday, the first 6.5 pages of the affirmation and vehement opposition to the defendant's untimely and insufficient answers, so-called, are done. It is written and typed. The time on wall today is 4.25 hours. Glendora went to the Advent service at noon, after which we had soup and a sandwich. Glendora talked to Lieutenant Quinn. Officer Fisher has had conversations by telephone with Walsh, Alpucci, and Larkin. Glendora got a transcript of judgment signed by the judge for the small claims action, and that is the news. Daddy, does the husband boss the house? Is the husband the boss of the house? And Daddy says, no, son, the husband houses the boss. 6:34 p.m., 140 telephone calls today. On December the 9th, 1993, Tuesday, Glendora was 1/4 of an hour videotaping what happened last week for television. She was 3.5 hours editing the wall videotapes. They are moving along fast. 1354, 1355, 1356 were entirely done, plus the VHS archives. 1357 was started. It is the reading of the logs to the world and exposing of the law-breaking, the record up until September the 1993. 8mm tapes are all laid down, 3E, F, G, and H. Glendora came home and queued up 3J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q. This is all wall for the next Thursday's editing. She made 3 appointments in Manhattan to edit wall videotapes. That's going to cost about $400 or $500. Let's hope that this will finish it. The wall tapes are playing all over Manhattan, Northern Westchester, White Plains, Harrison, and more. About 7 more tapes were taken to cable companies today to telecast. We put up a Christmas wreath in one of the windows. It looks nice. It is a good thing we did. There are no other Christmas decorations at all. The place looks like the Grinch. There was no time to work on the affidavit in opposition to defendant's so-called answer. Judge Rosado recused himself at Glendora's request. Glendora asked Judge Donovan to recuse himself, but the judge read the papers and says he sees no reason why he should recuse himself. I see a reason why. Judge Donovan was town justice in Harrison at the same time his father was chief of police. One of these defendants is a Harrison policeman. Another one of these defendants is the son of a Harrison policeman. Andrew Larkin is the one we talk about, and his son Kevin. Donovan should be able to watch the Glendora versus Wall videotapes on TV. They are playing there every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. on Channel 45. They have been on for 2 weeks. On December the 10th, 1993, Friday, the return date of the motion for default judgment is Tuesday, 7:48 p.m. The files and the logs are up to date. Glendora talked to Sergeant Fitzsimmons this morning, 8:22 p.m., read the law, 8:28 p.m. Answer page 4, the defendant's insufficient so-called answer. Went on to the 5th page, went on to the last page. It is 11:15 p.m. now. Tomorrow we'll have it typed, and the time on the wall today is 3.5 hours. Did you hear about the woman who was married 4 times? The first time she married a banker. The second time she married an actor. The third time she married a minister. And the 4th time she married an undertaker. And that's 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready, and 4 to go. Here is the notice from to the plaintiff that Donovan is on the case. He's been assigned to it. The above case has been assigned to Honorable W. Dennis Donovan, Westchester County Courthouse, 111 Grove Street. The court has directed that you notify at once all parties of the name of the assigned judge, and we did that Saturday. December the 11th, 1993, Saturday. Franklin typed for 2 hours on the answer denying defendants' counterclaims. They are ridiculous. We put up the Christmas lights on the double windows in the living room facing the west, and the ones in the dining room were done the day before. There is 3 windows decorated, with 7 to go, 1 per day. We finished the writing, we set up the appendix, we're ready to copy and slip under the doors. It cannot be notarized because Glendora's official notaries will not be at their desks in their county courthouse until Monday. Monday we can send all a notarized copy, but today's copy, not notarized, will give people more time before the return date Tuesday. That's the return date of my motion for default judgment. Also sent to the judge the what happened logs for the 5 weeks since the lawsuit was filed. There were snowflakes at noon. The time on wall today is 10 hours. We read the law, paginated. We're done with Walsh, Alpucci, and Larkin today in the office at 1 p.m. Franklin will copy and distribute. Dear, you look the same as you did 15 years ago when we were married. Wife, it's because I'm wearing the same dress. Okay, now we're up to Sunday. December the 12th. Do you remember December the 11th, 1992, the storm of the century, where it rained and rained and rained and rained? We had winds up to 65 miles per hour. Do you remember that? And the poor tree, the ground got drenched, and it lost its footing, and it fell over, a beautiful tree. And the tree hit the Con Ed wires. we were without electricity and heat all that time. You remember, 10 or 12 hours. And then the next day, when that storm was over, the very next day, which was a Saturday last year, it snowed, and it snowed something like 7 inches. I videotaped that and put it on the program. Extensive filing to do. Get the exhibits ready for the judge of the wall what happened log since the filing of the lawsuit for November. Franklin gave Bendish a copy yesterday. Get the copies of the affidavit in opposition to defendant's so-called answer ready to notarize and distribute tomorrow, along with plaintiff's refutation of the defendant's counterclaims. Read the law, do the logs. The dryer does not work again. It is no wonder it does not work the way certain people abuse it and pound it and kick it. The cellar door was wide open at 22 degrees. Bright, right? 1:15 p.m. Close the log. F. Franklin will reduce a copy at full stuff, seal, and distribute. Videotape the affirmation in opposition and the refutation of counterclaims. And the log will equal 1 hour for TV. The time on wall today is 5 hours. The time on wall this week is 31 3/4 hours. Maryland, housework is such a drag. You make the bed, you do the dishes, you take out the garbage. In 2 weeks you have to do the whole thing over again. This cigarette wrapper was way over by Glendora's door in the cellar bin, by the cellar bin. Roberta Walsh really had to go out of her way to get it over there. She just cannot control herself, leaving litter outside of our doors. And here's a picture of it. It's a Salem cigarette butt. This is his vegetarian burger. And my cats love that. My cats are vegetarians. Of course we are too. And this burger is made mainly out of soybeans, and it is delicious. Lasagna in a bun you can make with it. I take onions, fry onions, cook my rice, and then I put this vegetarian burger in with saute it with the onions, and mix it in with the rice. It's delicious. And you put soy sauce on it. Supreme Court of the State of New York. Glendora plaintiff versus Daniel Walsh, Roberta Walsh, James Walsh, Nella Alpucci, Theo Alpucci, Andrew Larkin, and Kevin Larkin, defendants. Affidavit in vehement opposition to defendant's so-called answer received by plaintiff too late. Glendora, being duly deposed and sworn, states that she vehemently opposes defendant's so-called answer and counterclaim untimely served with the reasons that follow. Defendants were personally served on November the 11th, 1993, Thursday, before 10 a.m., with the exception of Step 2 service personally on Theo Alpucci on November 12th, 93, Friday, the next day at 7:10 a.m., and were notified that if they did not answer the summons with notice and complaint within 20 days, judgment by default would be taken against them. The 20 days were up December 1, 1993 for 6 defendants and December the 2nd, 1993 for defendant Theo Alpucci. And there are the dates. Bruce P. Bendish should have served the answers personally on Glendora December 1st and December 2nd. He certainly knows where she lives. The same address as all 8 defendants, or 7 defendants, within 100 feet of same. Defendants have no proof that their answer was timely, no certified mail receipt, no return receipt requested, no personal service, and no stamped envelope. Take a look at this. Can you read that stamp? Is that postage meter? No. So they have no proof at all. This postage meter has been tampered with. This postmark is illegible. The dating of the so-called answer, December 1st, 1993, is false. It is like backdating a check. Personal jurisdiction. Defendants and lawyers are lying. Each defendant was served personally. See the affidavits of service provided to the county clerk and the court, and to each and every defendant. Courtesy copies. Each and every defendant was served precisely by the requirements of CPLR Section 308 and Section 309. Personal service upon a natural person shall be made by any of the following methods: by delivering the summons within the state to the person who is served. And we did that. You remember all that. .309, personal service upon an infant or incompetent. Upon an infant, personal service upon an infant shall be made by personally serving the summons within the state upon a parent or any guardian, or upon if the infant is of the age of 14 years or over, that's DOL Pucci, the summons shall also be personally served upon him within the state. This lawyer is lying, perhaps this lawyer is lying vicariously. Defendants have a long history of lying, and if defendants lie to their lawyer, then their lawyer has to lie to the court and face the consequences. The summons with notice and complaint were delivered to and left with, as the law says, each defendant pursuant to CPLR sections 308 and 309. Defendant's reaction to service was Neanderthal, as has been their behavior for 8 months. Here is an account of the defendant's response to service of legal papers. And this is the log that I've read to you. You've heard the whole thing, so we reproduce it here for the judge to show how the defendants kicked the summons with notice. And the complaint kicked it into the air, threw it into the air, tore it, left it in the hall. The defendants state no meritorious defense. This so-called answer of defendants does not deal with the issue. The issue of plaintiff has a protected interest, freedom from mental disturbance. Damages may be recovered on a cause of action for emotional disturbance. New York law allows recovery for mental disturbance in the absence of physical impact. There was physical impact by Daniel Walsh on October the 5th, 93, Tuesday, 6 p.m. and Theo Al Pucci threw the ball at Glendora's head, and Theo Al Pucci nearly knocked Franklin over when Theo brushed Franklin aside when Theo was on roller skates. Further, the so-called answer is deficient in not recognizing that defendants broke the White Plains noise ordinance by shouting, yelling, hooting, singing at any time or place so as to annoy plaintiff's comfort, peace, repose, quiet, and health. This is what and where the law breaking started. The defendants started this fight. The so-called answer is deficient in not dealing with the issue of disturbing utterances by defendants, the profane, insulting, humiliating, and abusive language by defendants, a matter of audio-taped and videotaped evidence, and which has gone before the public on several television programs. This so-called answer is deficient in not dealing with the liability of defendants for the breach of duty to refrain from inflicting intentional emotional distress. The so-called answer is deficient in not dealing with the intensity and the length of defendants' deliberate and designed campaign of harassment and intimidation. Nor does the so-called answer deal with the vindictiveness of the defendants, nor does the so-called answer address the maliciousness of the defendants. The so-called answer is further deficient in not addressing the intent of the defendants. Defendants intentionally inflicted emotional distress. They deliberately and designedly meant to cause emotional distress. Nor does this answer face the recklessness of the defendants in their 8-month campaign of shocking behavior, committing over 500 offenses against the plaintiff. This so-called answer is insufficient in addressing the conduct of defendants that exceeded all bounds of decency as measured by what the average member of the community would tolerate. Their conduct was so outrageous and so shocking, folks, that in some instances that some cable TV companies refused to telecast it. Neither defendants nor lawyer in their so-called answer dealt with the desire of defendants to cause plaintiff distress, nor does this answer so-called deal with the genuineness of the surrounding circumstances. Answer, as it is called, even if it were timely, is totally not sufficient. Answer, so-called, is totally frivolous. Causes of action are pellucidly stated, super, and in the complaint. To say that the plaintiff states or has no cause of action makes no sense at all. Defendants are never justified in breaking the law. Defendants first broke the White Plains Noise Ordinance law. That's see paragraph 17 above, which you just read. Defendants were asked to cease and desist things. Defendants refused. Defendants continued to break the law. Plaintiff could see where this would lead and started videotaping for evidence for police, court, and jury. Defendants were frustrated by the videotaped record since they no longer could lie about their law breaking. Defendants thus began a long campaign of harassment intent to annoy and alarm, insulting, abusive, obscene language, and obscene gesturing, vandalizing, thievery, and provocation. Plaintiff did not talk to defendant. Plaintiff kept the record on audio tape, videotape, and paper. Plaintiff would not get involved on defendant's low level. Plaintiff never broke a law. Defendants constantly broke laws. Plaintiff was scrupulous to summon police on defendant's thievery, vandalism, harassment, and insulting, abusive language, and obscene language, and to see that a report was filed by the White Plains Police. Defendants had no cause of action to summon the police. In April, they made fools of themselves by summoning the White Plains Police with a charge that Glendora was videotaping their children, thereby showing their ignorance of the law. Plaintiff never initiated any of the incidents. All incidents were initiated by defendants at times when plaintiff was quietly minding her own affairs. Defendants perpetually, as the record shows, penetrated our privacy indoors and outdoors. Defendants have blatantly broken the laws of the land, and defendants must pay the price. I've got to go clean my glasses. $21,000. It is a lie that probable cause existed. Defendants never had a cause. Plaintiff never broke the law. Plaintiff videotaped the personal injuries defendants heaped upon her, videotaped for evidence. There was videotaping. If defendants did not break the laws, there was no videotaping. It is as clear as that. To say defendants had probable cause is vague, unsubstantiated, and quite frankly an embarrassing level to which this lawyer stoops. Malice is in evidence. To say defendants acted without malice is a lie. The evidence on videotape and audio tape catches them in the act of malice numerous times. Seventh affirmative defense is an embarrassing lie. Lawyer lies that the more than 500 tortious acts of defendants had probable cause. Defendants never had probable cause. That the more than 500 tortious acts were perpetrated without malice. All were done with malice. That the more than 500 tortious acts were inflicted without intent to injure. Each and every one was inflicted with intent to injure. And that the more than 500 tortious acts do not maintain a claim as a matter of law. Eighth affirmative defense is hollow, specious, and not worthy of court's attention. Every one of the more than 500 tortious acts was done willfully, wrongfully, maliciously, intentionally, designedly, with unreasonable, grotesque, outrageous, shocking, vindictive, unjustified, calculated intent to produce and did produce damage to plaintiff in the amount of $21,000. Lawyer makes no declaration on this so-called answer. No declaration under penalty of perjury. Where is the attorney's declaration that he makes these statements in this so-called answer under penalty of perjury? 1, he is lying, and 2, he tries to get out from under penalty of perjury. There is no declaration he is an attorney duly licensed before this court, nor that he is the attorney of record for these defendants, nor that he has personal knowledge of the facts set forth in this matter, nor that he declares under penalty of perjury under the laws of the New York State that the foregoing is true and correct. All he has said in this paper is hearsay, nor does this lawyer set his hand and seal to this answer. He does not sign it. Accordingly, plaintiff affirms that this answer is not timely, and the answer is in quotes, does not state a meritorious defense, is not truthful, lacks substantiation and proof, lacks a declaration by an attorney, states no disputed issues of material fact to determine, and plaintiff pleads that this quote, answer, unquote, be stricken out, and that judgment be entered in favor of the plaintiff, Glendora, and against the defendants for the sum of $21,000 with interest on that amount from April the 11th, 1993, with costs and disbursements plaintiff paid, and that plaintiff's motion for default judgment be granted, and that this court grant plaintiff any further relief that this court deems fitting and proper. And that's the jurat. Now, with their so-called answer, which really wasn't an answer, they made counterclaims. They made 2 counterclaims. So I deal with this in a separate paper. The caption is the same. Plaintiff's answer to and denial of defendant's counterclaims. Paragraph A. Plaintiff refutes every allegation numbered 1 through 10 of defendant's so-called quote-unquote answer as mentioned in paragraphs 11 of their page 3. we quote right here, and we just take it out and copy it. That at all times hereinafter mentioned, but since on or before April 12, 1993 to the present, the plaintiff has bothered, harassed, and maliciously attacked all the defendants. This is a lie. This is my answer to that. All incidents were initiated by the defendants. Plaintiff never paid any attention to the defendants until defendants willfully, intentionally, and maliciously violated plaintiff's right to quiet, peace, comfort, repose, and health. The cause was always the defendant's egregious law-breaking of noise, horn-blowing, thievery, vandalism, profane, abusive, and outrageous language directed at the plaintiff. The effect was videotaping their law-breaking and their evil attacks. There never was any videotaping until defendants deliberately and atrociously violated plaintiff's rights. Each time defendants did this, plaintiff videotaped for evidence. Plaintiff never initiated any incident, never had a desire to do so, and never will. Plaintiff always wanted to be left in peace by these low-level lawbreakers ignorant of people's rights. Plaintiff did not speak to said violators before they initiated such savagery, during it, or after it. Plaintiff never spoke to defendants between incidents nor paid any attention to them. If there were no infractions, there was no videotaping. It is as simple as that, and defendants lie to say anything different. Plaintiff was very careful not to break any law. Plaintiff defended her rights at all times within strict law abidance. Plaintiff never attacked defendants. Plaintiff never harassed defendants. Plaintiff never bothered defendants. Plaintiff reacted to defendants bothering her by videotaping their doing it, audiotaping their doing it, and writing it down and publishing it. Defendants and their lawyer display poor judgment in lying in the face of this record so published. Quote, harass, unquote, is an intent to annoy and disturb with no legitimate purpose. Thereby defendants harass. Plaintiff never had and never will have an intent to annoy and disturb. Plaintiff videotaped, audiotaped, and circulated the record for a legitimate purpose, evidence for the police, the judge, and the court, and the jury. These people held no and presently do not hold any attraction to the plaintiff. She will continue to ignore their underdeveloped Neanderthal presence until they inflict damage on plaintiff, at which time plaintiff will get out her camera, audio recorder, and typewriter in self-defense. Defendants and lawyer are vague in their dates. Let plaintiff set the record straight for the court. There were no offenses before April the 11th, 1993, Easter Sunday. The first offense, 3.5 hours long, was precisely on April the 11th, 1993, Easter Sunday. The first videotaping for the record was precisely on April the 12th, 1993, Monday afternoon. And here's another one of their absurd statements, that at all times hereinafter mentioned, but since on or before April 12, 1993 to the present, the plaintiff, by the intentional, harmful, and malicious acts, has maliciously inflicted emotional injury upon all the defendants. To this I say, this is a lie. The plaintiff never performed any intentional, harmful, or malicious acts. Any emotional injury on any defendant is self-inflicted. By 1, defendants initially breaking the noise ordinance of the City of White Plains. 2, by refusing to own up to the same. 3, by refusing to attend to plaintiff's request to cease and desist. 4, by retaliation that led to gross breaking of the laws. 5, by their own guilty conscience. 6, by lying and cover-up. 7, by vandalism. 8, by taunting. 9, by not being good parents and taking care of their children. 10, by thievery. 11, by smoking in front of their children and bleaching their lungs, and by polluting their air and the common areas, and thereby endangering plaintiff's health. 12, by teaching their children profane, vile, obscene language. 13, by teaching their children to disrespect the law, the police, and the courts. And 14, by maliciously littering the laundry area floor, littering plaintiff's threshold and parking space, and littering the common areas inside and outside the building of residence. Any emotional injury of defendants was self-inflicted. Defendants chose to initiate every incident. Plaintiff acted only in self-defense. Now here's another lie. In their counterclaim, that as a result of the foregoing, the counter complainants, defendants, have each been damaged in the sum of $50,000, and you multiply that by 7, that's $350,000. 1, this is frivolous. 2, this is grotesque. 3, this is a lie. 4, this is an insult to the court. 5, 6, or 5, this shows no honesty, no intelligence, and no common sense. Plaintiff's refutation of the second counterclaim. Plaintiff denies each and every allegation, lie, in defendant's paragraphs numbered 1 through 16 of defendant's so-called answer. Okay, this is another embarrassing statement they made. I should think they would be so ashamed to say these things, that the action commenced by the plaintiff was commenced in bad faith, solely to harass, and to maliciously inflict additional emotional injury upon the defendant. Oh yeah. To that I say this is a lie. Plaintiff has been badly injured, and plaintiff is intensely serious about bringing these tortfeasors before the bench and having them pay for the injury they willfully and recklessly and intentionally inflicted upon plaintiff. The record on videotape, on audio tape, and on paper stinks with the bad faith, quote unquote, of the defendants. Okay, here's another bad statement by their lawyer, Bendish, that the action filed by the plaintiff in this court was commenced and continued without any reasonable basis in fact. This is pathetic. Plaintiff submitted 140 pages of facts in her complaint. Plaintiff has 6 hours of videotaped evidence of the tortious acts committed by these law-defiling defendants. Neither defendants nor the lawyer have any self-respect to enunciate this bizarre claim. Defendants pitifully are deficient in facts. What proof have they offered? What videotapes have they shown? What audio tapes have they played? What written record have they presented to the court? Nothing. What reasonable basis of facts have defendants proffered the court? Go on to the next bizarre point made by this lawyer, Bendish, that as a result of plaintiff's bad faith, the defendants have been forced to retain counsel, expend large sums of monies to defend themselves in this action, have sustained emotional injury, distress, and anxiety, and will continue to do so during the pendency of this action. Okay, and this is what I have to say about that. That as a result of defendants' wanton, ignorant, blatant, vindictive, retaliatory, outrageous, in the extreme, malicious behavior, defendants have forced themselves to retain counsel, to get themselves out of the mess they daily insisted on getting themselves into, even though plaintiff warned them in writing every week as to where their pernicious campaign was leading them. Defendants would never have been in this fix if they had checked their wild, savage instincts and those of their children and disciplined themselves to live in a civilized community in a law-abiding manner. If alleged injury, distress, and anxiety were so bothersome to defendants, then how come they persisted this law-breaking on their own motion, sua sponte, initiative and design? They had a choice, cease and desist. But defendants made the wrong choice, and they are liable, and they have to pay. Defendants chose to push the plaintiff as far as possible to incite a reasonable person. This is what you call the reasonable man standard. To incite a reasonable person to the point of said reasonable person breaking the law. But the defendants were never able to corrupt plaintiff into breaking the law or into moving. Plaintiff renewed her lease for 2 years on September 1st, 1993. If defendants were so injured, then why were they the instigators on every incident? Every incident was started by defendants. They were the cause. The record on videotape, audio tape, and paper was the effect. First you had the cause, they're breaking the law, and the effect was the videotaping of the evidence. Glendora has shown this on television, that defendants will sustain distress and anxiety during the pendency of this action. But that will be because of their lawyer's poor performance. Nella Alpucci showed the low class of these defendants when she was broadcast on WABC TV, the Eyewitness News, the second week of November 1993, 11 p.m. 800,000 viewers, by the way, folks. And a commercial, 30-second commercial on that news costs about $7,000. Anyway, Nella said, and she showed her low class when she said this, "I don't know whether to laugh or cry or clock her." Glendora has videotapes of Nella that will tell the truth even more pungently about this defendant. Daniel Walsh on the same broadcast infuriated the White Plains police by saying to these same 800,000 viewers over the whole New York area, 3 states, the police think it is a joke. Now the White Plains police want the world to know they have taken this whole matter with intense seriousness. And here's another absurd statement by their lawyer, that as a result of the foregoing and the continued maintenance of the aforesaid frivolous claim pursuant to the provisions of the CPLR 8303A, the defendants demand costs and attorney's fees to the amount of $10,000 per defendant, in addition to any other judgment awarded, for a total of $70,000. Glendora says, CPLR 8303A implies the worth of an attorney. That is, that an attorney does a job commensurate with value. What this attorney has dished out so far are an quote-unquote answer, untimely, an quote-unquote answer, not truthful, no declaration, an quote-unquote answer that is not sufficient, an quote-unquote answer that is frivolous, an quote-unquote answer that states no meritorious defense, an quote-unquote answer submitted with no index number, filled in after plaintiff paid $170 for the same, and an address that is a lie. Knollwood Road is not in White Plains, but is in Judge Palella's hometown of Greenberg, Elmsford. And this is about as close as this lawyer and defendants get to the truth in their whole 6 pages allegations, number 1 to 21. This lawyer is not worth $10,000 per defendant, nor $70,000 lump sum for all 7 defendants. This lawyer is like the one written up in the Reporter Dispatch. This is a case of a man who did something for 2 men, and the 2 men couldn't pay, and so the 2 men gave this man, his name is, just a second, Safferstein, Norman Safferstein, gave him a piece of property in Greenberg. And it was worth $125,000, but a local judge ruled that the mortgage wasn't proper, and therefore the man didn't have right to the land. Well, the man naturally wanted to appeal that lower court decision. But the lawyer of that man got into an argument with another lawyer as to whether this was a state case or a federal case, and then they forgot to file the notice of appeal. A notice of appeal is about a paragraph, okay? It's probably the simplest law procedure there is, but it's the one that's most strictly enforced. If you don't have that notice of appeal in 30 days, you don't get an appeal. So this man's all angry at the lawyer, naturally, and wouldn't you know, leave it to Gannett. They don't tell you who the lawyer is. Gannett is always flunking Journalism 101, who, when, why, where, what. And so now the appellate division naturally sticks to its rule that he can't appeal. In summary, plaintiff denies vehemently each and every allegation made in defendant's counterclaims. Not one statement in defendant's counterclaims is true. Every statement is an exercise in hysterics. This is why Glendora videotaped. She suspected, and she was correct, that these 3 families would lie. In these counterclaims, defendants and ghostwriter list not one specific instance of law breaking by Glendora. They cannot. Glendora did not break the law and never will. Glendora has no liability. Glendora listed over 500 times the law breaking committed by these tortfeasors, and these tortfeasors are in New York State, liable for each one and for damages. There is something wrong with defendants and their lawyers dealing plaintiffs' cause of action. Could not defendants come up with their own cause of action? No, apparently they do not have one. Defendants use the same cause of action that the plaintiff announced. This did not take $70,000 worth of legal fees or Pace Law Library research. The weakness of defendants' and lawyers' posture is graphically glaring by choosing to respond with their limpid answer, quote unquote, rather than with a motion to dismiss. Their, quote unquote, wherefore would fit a motion much better than it would an answer, quote unquote. Finally, this is point Z, alpha and omega. This lawyer, at the end of his so-called answer and counterclaims, quote unquote, does not set his hand and seal to the same. He knows they are lies. This is why he does not sign it and why he does not declare under penalty of perjury. Wherefore, Plaintiff Glendora pleads this court dismiss defendant's counterclaims, grant plaintiff's motion for default judgment in the amount of $21,000 plus interest, rule that the defendants pay for the cost and disbursements of this action, and pleads that this court, whatever other relief this court deems fitting and proper. And that's signed Glendora. Oh yeah, and it says here that it's dated White Plains, New York, not Greenberg or Elmsford, December the 11th, 1993. Here are 3 new judges. Whoop. That's sometimes how judges read your papers. In the Supreme Court, we have Owen, Sherwood, and Scarpino. Here is the notice from Judge Donovan that he is the judge and telling me to notify everybody that he is the judge. And down at the bottom it says that Glendora requests that Judge Donovan recuse himself for the following reason. Glendora takes exception to Judge Donovan's ruling after looking over the papers that he keep the case. Judge Donovan should recuse himself for the same reasons Judge Rosado recused himself. See Judge Rosado's order of recusal enclosed. Further, Judge Donovan was a town justice for Harrison. At the same time, his father was a chief of police in Harrison. Andrew Larkin is a Harrison policeman, and Kevin Larkin is the son of a Harrison policeman. Further, Judge Donovan lives in Harrison. Plaintiff feels that Judge Donovan would be prejudiced in favor of the Larkin defendants and thereby in favor of all defendants. Further, as Glendora has stated to the Appellate Division, 2nd Department, Glendora has no confidence in Judge Donovan nor his law clerk. The Constitution of the United States guarantees Glendora a fair and unbiased tribunal. Signed, Glendora. This is an order of recusal from Judge Rosado. The instant matter wherein plaintiff seeks money damages against the named defendants for alleged intentional torts, that is, mental and emotional distress, was assigned to this court on December 3rd, 1993. However, this court also previously received written correspondence from plaintiff wherein plaintiff contacted inter alia the Office of the Administrative Judge for the 9th Judicial District, that's Judge Angelo Ingracia, the Grievance Committee for the 9th Judicial District. They don't pay any attention. The Commission on Judicial Conduct, Gerald Stern, he doesn't pay any attention. And numerous others, including the Office of the Governor, to voice the displeasure with a previous decision and order of this court dated September 21st, 93, in an unrelated matter entitled Glendora versus CBS, Westchester County Index number so-and-so. Under these circumstances, the court, on its own motion, would recuse itself from any participation in the instant matter beyond the instant order of recusal. Instant being the thing that he has right here. The instant matter is referred back, that's tautological, is referred to the Office of the Calendar Clerk for assignment to another court. And that's when it went to Donovan. Such is the order of this court, White Plains, New York, December the 6th, 1993, Peter P. Rosado. Versus the Martial Arts Institute of America, Grandmaster Kim, Master Park, and Aaron Bell. Here is the transcript of judgment. Judgment is rendered in favor of plaintiff Glendora, residing at Box 532, Scarsdale, New York, 10583, against defendants Martial Arts Institute of America, and so forth, 3947 Court Street, White Plains, New York, 10601, for the sum of $105 plus interest, and that's blank, and costs of $5.58, amounting to a total of $110.58. And it's signed December 3rd, 1993, by Acting City Court Judge of White Plains, Honorable Joanne Freya. Judgment entered in accordance with the foregoing on December the 3rd, 93, by Betty Stewart, the clerk. It's very fancy paper. Very well done. And this is the back. And it just says Glendora against Martial Arts Institute of America, Grandmaster Kim, Master Park, Aaron Bell. After trial, December the 1st, 1993, I make the following findings of fact and conclusions of law. Judgment for the plaintiff, quantum merit, $105, Honorable Joanne Freya. The foregoing shall constitute the decision in order of the court. That is, and that's really inadvisable, because if he doesn't pay it, then I just take it over to the county clerk, and I give the county clerk $10 to have it filed, and then I give the county clerk another $5 to get an execution. I take it to the sheriff, and the sheriff puts another $10 on it to collect it, and you know, the fees just mount up. So you'd be much better off just to pay it. She put one of her Salem cigarette packages right there, and then she poured Coke. You see this? She poured Coke all the way down the door. She left the affirmation, and he left the affirmation in opposition to the defendant's so-called answer, and the refutation of the defendant's counterclaims. Left it here ever since Monday night. Today, Thursday, Caesar picked it up. That's my tripod, and that's my little camera. So, they had ceased and desist for a while. Something set them off again. Must be the White Plains police, or maybe their lawyer refused to take their case after he heard my affirmation in opposition to their so-called answer. Oh, Jenny. Little birdie just assaulted me. Came down the stairs just as I was coming up. Said something about, so you're on television. And then she got together all of her spite. Here she comes upstairs now. This would be a good time to see the Christmas lights. Wasn't that nice? That's beautiful. This is the one in the kitchen. Now this is the one in the dining room. That's nice. This is the one in the living room, the double window. facing the west, and this is the one in the living room facing the south. These are twinkle lights. Now let's go in here. And this is the one facing south. See, you're looking at them backwards. Outside they're beautiful. And this is the one. Oh, that's pretty. Now let's go look at the one in the bathroom. Anything yet because I put it up today and they don't work. I can't make them go on. So I have to get a new string of lights. This will be the last window. Everybody, how you doing? This is Glendora, Chat with Glendora, and I'm celebrating my 20th year in public access, and I'm celebrating my 42nd year in broadcast television. This is what happened with Scott Lord on December 13th, 93 Monday, 1 hour to copy the record on appeal for Fredman. It is up to page 300. This is Fredman's bad decision. The sign on the lawn outside of the house said drum set for sale, and the sign in front of the house next door said hooray. On December the 14th, 93 Tuesday, 1 hour to copy the Fredman record on appeal. It is up to page 350. That is awful. The high school symphony orchestra has improved. You can now tell when they've stopped tuning up. And on Wednesday, 1.5 hours on Scott Today, working on Fredman's record on appeal. The last 50 pages are almost done. Glendora perfected another appeal today. There was an Advent service and lunch at church. A midget fortune teller escaped from jail, and the headline in the newspaper was, Small, Medium, at Large. On December the 15th, 93 Thursday, there was no time to work on Scott. Glendora edited for 4 hours, and at editing there was not time to edit on Scott. Glendora talked a long time with Bert Patterson about Tri-State losing its license. He dodged the question. He is not doing his job, which is to protect consumers in Nassau County from fraudulent home improvement contractors. He asked Glendora the same questions he asked her a month ago and has not done a thing. Not done anything. Glendora mentioned that he let the affidavit by Scott Lord slip right by him. Barnes and Stahl signed a stipulation with the Nassau County Consumer Affairs that Scott Lord would not act as a manager inside or outside of Tri-State, but Bert Patterson let that affidavit by Scott Lord slip right by him. He also dodged the questions about Scott Lord operating a business with no Consumer Affairs license, and he asked Glendora, has anybody checked this out? Glendora checked it out. She told him that a month ago. She made a videotape of it. He wouldn't look at it. Phil Sweet looked at it, but he wouldn't. And anyway, Patterson lives in Hempstead, and he can check it out on his way to and from work. It is negligence, or it is corrupt, or maybe it's both. The Executive Office of the United States Attorneys is doing nothing on the administrative claim. They're the only one who hasn't answered. All three the others have denied it. O'Connell is doing nothing on the distribution of the bankruptcy funds, and there are all these things that people get sued for. On Friday, folks, the Fredman record on appeal had to be put in order. Some papers were way out of sequence. The page numbers from 210 to 250 had to be repaginated. The time on Scott Today is 1 3/4 hours. The Executive Office of the United States Attorneys is the same old procrastination. Poverty, folks, is hereditary. You get it from your children. On Saturday, there was no time for Scott, and there were 2 hours today, Sunday, to repaginate Fredman record on appeal, pages 251 to 300. Then I had to repaginate 300 to 350, and then there were no corrections to do from 351 to 400, and it still isn't done. Well, all right. O'Connell is Don't Answer at 3:30 p.m. Sunday. Later this afternoon, we videotaped what happened this week. The time on Scott this week is 7¼ hours. Hubbard, my present financial state is liquid assets. Mother-in-law, meaning everything is going down the drain. And that's what happened on Glendora versus Scott Lord the week of December the 13th, 1993. Hi there, everybody. This is Glendora, Chat with Glendora, and this is what happened on Glendora versus Gannett Broder on the week of December the 13th, 1993. There was no time for Broder. Glendora's Lincoln was stolen. The White Plains police were terrific. They found it the next day in the Bronx. The Bronx police were terrific. Glendora went to the Bronx and recovered it. It is an interesting story, but there's no time to tell it. Gannett should write about it, but then Gannett does not write interesting stories. Then they leave out the names. On Tuesday, Glendora did Broder for an hour and finished the reading of the last PACE research, and that's about what a magistrate judge does. Our case has been taken from Judge Broderick, whom I'm sad to report, is ill. And it's been given to Magistrate Judge Fox. And that really has to be done by consent of both parties, but the court didn't seem to bother with that. So we'll see how that goes. I found out what I'm going to say in my notice of motion, affidavit of motion. It is good, it's good stuff. Tomorrow the hope is to start writing it. The high school symphony orchestra, folks, is really improving. You can tell now when they've stopped tuning up. On Wednesday, mucho research at Pace Law Library. What are the duties of a magistrate judge? Title 28, United States Code. Advent service in church at lunch. Broder had an article in the newspaper, first we have seen in 3 weeks, and we read some of the articles on duties of a magistrate judge, and we wrote a notice of motion and an affidavit of same for summary judgment. I'll read that to you in a second. And a midget fortune teller escaped from jail, and the headline in the newspaper was, Small, Medium, at Large. Broder was on a chat with Glendora last night on TCI in Westchester, and the time on Broder today is 3 hours. Now on Thursday it took 2 hours to notarize the motion for summary judgment, to copy it and to serve it on the defendants and their lawyer, and to submit it. Also, the affidavit of service for personal service, December 9th, was submitted to the district court, United States District Court. If you're in Nassau or Suffolk County, district court means county court. But here we mean the federal court, the United States Federal Court. Glendora edited 4 hours, but we didn't do any Broder, and I'm working on another series. I want to finish that first. Then I'll bring the Broder editing up to date. Friday, a look at Judge Fox. The courtroom was closed, dark, and locked at 3 p.m. Glendora read about the duties of a magistrate judge. We started writing a motion for an order for Gannett to pay the $65 for personal service upon the defendants because the defendants did not return Form 18A, the acknowledgement form. The time on Broder today was 1 hour. Poverty is inherited, folks. It's hereditary. Poverty is hereditary. You get it from your children. Saturday, for the Lord loves justice, Isaiah 61, 1-4, 8-11. You hear that, Broder. You hear that, Gannett, Curley, Watson, McCorkindale, Dale, Sherlock, and the rest of you. Gannett was at 56 1/8, up 3/8. The motion to order Gannett et al. To pay Glendora the $65 is typed. I'll read it to you. The envelopes are addressed, the return addressed and stamped, and the affidavit of service typed. That's 1.5 hours. 10:36 a.m., we read the duties of magistrate judges. Peter, my financial state at the moment is liquid assets. Mother-in-law. Yes, that means everything is going down the drain. Sunday, a half an hour Glendora log file, nothing on the lawsuit, reading done on the magistrates and the what happened log. Later this afternoon we'll videotape last week if we get it before the White Plains gifts. We had a gift service tonight. That's a white gift service. You take a gift and you wrap it in white paper and you take it down to the altar and you sing, "We Three Kings of Orient." Or was it joy to the world, the Lord is come? And then there's a candlelight service after that. They have a candle lighting service where the little angels come down the aisle and they light the candle of the person sitting at the aisle, and then that person lights the next person's candle and so forth. And that requires a White Plains Fire Department. They were there 3 strong, 3 handsome firemen were there. And then after that we had the White Gift Dinner. Oh, there were so many people. The total hours on Broder today, this week, is 12. A freighter carrying a load of yo-yos struck a reef off the coast of Florida and sunk 46 times. Now, did you ever notice that my show has a happy ending? That's one thing that you can always say for it. My show has a happy ending. Everybody's glad when it's over. Now, I am celebrating my 20th year in public access, and I'm celebrating my 42nd year in broadcast television. I'm going on the NBC television network. I'm going to tell jokes. It's sponsored by the Polaroid Corporation. And I ordered the spot from the NBC television network. It'll be on concentration going coast to coast. And 20 minutes later, the NBC television network called me up and said, "We're giving you a spot free." That must be for Christmas. "You've been a good customer and we want you to have a spot free." Ooh, isn't that nice? Now, let me see if I can find these 2 motions. United States District Court, Southern District of New York, Glendora plaintiff against Gannett Company Incorporated, Gannett Suburban Newspapers, John Curley, Gary Watson, Douglas McCorkindale, Gary Sherlock, and Kenneth Paulson, defendants. Notice of motion for summary judgment by plaintiff. Judge Broderick, Magistrate Judge Fox, please take notice that the plaintiff will move this court at the courthouse, 101 East Post Road, White Plains, New York, 10601, on the 27th day of December, 9:30 a.m. of that day or as soon thereafter as the plaintiff can be heard, for an order for a default judgment for defendant's failure to answer the summons and complaint previously filed in this matter, and/or for summary judgment and for such other and further relief as this court may deem just and proper. And here is the actual motion for summary judgment with the affidavit. Glendora, being first duly sworn, deposes and said, "I am the plaintiff in the above entitled action. I submit this affidavit in support of plaintiff's motion for entry of summary judgment. The action is brought to recover $600,000 for damages due plaintiff by defendants' antitrust violations of the Sherman Act and the Clayton Act, and by defendants' monopoly or attempted monopoly. The facts and circumstances under which the cause of action arose are set forth in plaintiff's complaint filed August 10, 1993. The answer of defendants filed in this matter does not state a valid defense, and I believe there is no defense in this action. Plaintiff moves that the court strike the defendant's answer, and the facts stated above are known by me to be true of my own knowledge, dated White Plains, New York, December 16, 1993, Glendora. And it's subscribed and sworn to, and the notary is Francis Herensing. And this is the affidavit of service by Franklin Buell. That's a motion for summary judgment. That's a motion that's not very often granted. But I think that is true. They did not state a defense, and I don't think they do have a defense. And they're just fooling around trying to find excuses with the service. Now, here's another motion. This is how you do it. You get your envelopes already. And then you go and you notarize it. It has to be notarized. My signature has to be notarized, and the process server has to be notarized. And please take notice that the plaintiff will move this court at the courthouse, 101 East Post Road, White Plains, New York. By the way, the federal courthouse is really going ahead fast. I've seen the building in its skeleton in its underwear. and it's next to the Public Safety Center in White Plains, and it's behind the county courthouse. Anyway, we're going to move this court while it's still at 101 East Post Road on the 3rd day of January 1994 at 9:30 a.m. of that day or soon thereafter, as plaintiff can be heard for an order requiring the defendants in this case to pay the plaintiff $65 for the process server fee. And I'll read you the motion. Glendora plaintiff in the above entitled case moves the court for an order requiring the defendants in this case to pay the plaintiff $65 for process server fee. Defendants, after much exercise over the necessity of Form 18A, you remember all that, did not return Form 18A to plaintiff, and Form 18A told the defendants they might have to pay for alternative service. Here's where Form 18A told them that if you do not complete and return the form to the sender within 20 days, you may be required to pay any expenses incurred in serving a summons and complaint in any other manner permitted by law, and that's the $65 that had to be paid. The clerk of the court has on file the invoice from the United States Lawyers Service showing that Glendora prepaid this $65. White Plains, New York, December 20th, and subscribed and sworn to, and there's the affidavit of service, and all that has to be notarized. And here's the invoice from United Lawyers Service. And here's the personal service upon Gary Sherlock, who's the president of Gannett and publisher of Gannett Suburban Newspapers. And here's the personal service on Kenneth Paulson, who's the executive editor of Gannett Suburban Newspapers. Now, okay. So my show always has a happy ending. Did you notice that? My show always has a happy ending. Everybody's glad when it's over. This is Glendora, Chat with Glendora, and what happened on the week of December 13th, 1993, Glendora versus Gannett Broder. This is Glendora, Chat with Glendora, and this is what happened on Glendora versus the Department of the Division of Housing and Community Renewal, DHCR, and Judge Coppola. This is standing still right now. The next step is to write the brief and the record on appeal, in other words, to perfect the appeal, but that can't be done until the Fredman appeal is perfected. And the Fredman appeal right now is at the record on appeal, which is running about 400 pages. Boy, it's going to be so expensive to print that and ship it. And so that's where that stands, other than the fact that Glendora versus the DHCR is playing on cable TV in Yonkers. Now, it says here that the Lord loves justice. Isaiah 61, 1-4, 8-11. And a freighter carrying a load of yo-yos struck a reef off the coast of Florida and sunk 45 times. Celebrating her 20th year in public access, and she's celebrating her 42nd year in broadcast television. And Polaroid is sponsoring Glendora's Jokes on the NBC television network. That'll be on concentration, we hope, on Christmas Eve. And after the order was placed, about 20 minutes later, NBC television called up Glendora and said, we are giving you a spot free. A free spot, clear across the network. That's worth $1,500, 30 seconds, clear across the network. And they're giving me a free $1,500 spot. He said, you've been a good customer. Must be the Christmas spirit. And did you ever notice that my show always has a happy ending? Everybody's glad when it's over. Happened this week, the week of December 13th, 1993, on Glendora versus Lydia Gallicano. Nothing happened, meaning that the son-in-law lawyer, Warnberger, did not answer, did not hand in the respondent's brief for Holden, for my appeal of Holden's decision. And the son-in-law lawyer did not hand in a respondent's brief for my appeal of Judge Ruskin's decision. And the son-in-law lawyer, John Ornberger, did not hand in a respondent's brief for my appeal of Judge Donovan's decision. Judge Donovan has been appointed judge of another case of mine, and I asked that he be recused himself, and I strongly urge that he recuse himself. But he hasn't. He stubbornly holds on to the case. He won't let it go. Let's see. 20 of us decorated the church for Christmas. Then we ate and sang carols. I made 140 telephone calls on Friday. And this is my Lincoln's 14th birthday. And he's gone 188,000 miles. My Lincoln Continental Mark VI, Signature Series, 1980. 14 years ago, I paid cash for him. And this is the car that Lydia made stay out in the rain when she stole our garage space in 1992 on Memorial Day. Let's see. A Chat with Glendora always has a happy ending. Did you notice that? Everybody's glad when it's over. And a freighter carrying a load of yo-yos off the coast of Florida hit a reef and sunk 45 times. I'm celebrating my 20th year in public access and my 42nd year in broadcast television. And the NBC television network gave me a spot free, clear across the country, coast to coast, on concentration. We hope that will be on Christmas Eve. And it says here that the Lord loves justice. Isaiah 61, 1-4, 8-11. So hear that, Judge John F. Holden Jr., and hear that, Lydia Gallicano, landlord, and hear that, the court clerk who messed up the mailing of that order of release, made it 6 days late, made it impossible for me to get an order to show cause to stop it, and hear that administrative judge who leaves the territory and doesn't leave anybody else to sign an order to show cause. This is mailing number 42, December 15th, 93 week. The affirmation in opposition to the answer. And Glendora refutes the counterclaims. And Glendora versus Walsh, Alpucci, and Larkin. And on December the 15th, 1993, Monday, reduced, copied, folded, stuffed, sealed, delivered the affirmation in opposition to the so-called answer. And Glendora refutes the counterclaims, 5 hours and $15. At 7:25 p.m., Daniel Walsh came downstairs and kicked Glendora's door and kicked it very, very hard and said, "Keep your blank, 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 D, blank, blank, and stuff, and don't put it under my door anymore." All that these attacks, profane language, abusive language, have got him into, he still does not cease and desist. These were legal papers that were served upon him. One cannot ignore legal papers. The first set served Saturday were not notarized, since Glendora's notaries in the county courthouse were not in, but a duplicate set was notarized Monday when the notaries were in and served. We just did them a favor by giving it to them Saturday, and it was a lot of work and a lot of expense to do that. Okay, the papers were all over the hall floor Monday night. December the 16th, 1993, Tuesday. The papers are still out there in the hall. They have the defendants' names on them: Daniel Walsh, Roberta Walsh, and James Walsh. On December the 15th, 1993, Wednesday, Advent service and luncheon at church. Glendora writes Judge Donovan about Daniel Walsh Monday night. Franklin submitted the same to the judge's chambers. Roberta poured Coke down Glendora's door and left a Salem cigarette wrapper at the threshold. This woman has no control over her emotions, nor over her puerile behavior. Her deliberate and malicious campaign of harassment and intimidation continues. She continues breaching the duty she has toward Glendora not to inflict emotional distress. She has a duty to refrain from inflicting emotional distress. Her outrageous and extreme conduct of intentional infliction of emotional distress makes her liable. This is Tortious Act number 554. Number 554, Tortious Acts. December the 16th, 1993, Thursday, Cesar fixed the smoke alarm in the hallway. This is very important. Porzio really does a good job. Glendora talked to the judge's secretary, Judge Donovan's, about the judge recusing himself. The Cokes Roberta poured on the door is still there. Glendora brought in the cigarette package for evidence. Here, I'll show it to you. Lieutenant Quinn never answers the phone. Glendora's called the number a dozen times this week. The Lincoln was stolen from outside the White Plains Post Office, and the White Plains Police and the Bronx Police did a brilliant job recovering it from the Bronx. Officer Dory, number 81, Detective DeFazio, and Officer Christopher Clark. Glendora is writing letters of praise to their chiefs. It took 4 hours of editing today to move the wall TV programs along. Here is the accomplishment, folks. Number 1356, VHS archives. Number 1357, laid down in VHS. Number 1358, laid down in VHS. Number 1359, laid down in VHS. 1360, laid down in VHS. 1361, laid down in 11 minutes of the VHS. Now this 1360 and 61 refers to the 1361st public access program that I produced. I'm celebrating 20 years in public access, and I'm celebrating 42 years in broadcast television. Now, these things that I just read to you that were laid down, these are chapters 26, 27, 28, and 29, 30, and 31 of Glendora versus Walsh, Alpucci, and Larkin. They are the What Happened logs of September, October, and November of 1993. They came from 8mm videotapes 3I, J, K, and L. Left to do are 3, M, N, O, P, Q, and R. That's the one we're on right now. The next day, Friday, these tapes were distributed to TCI Cable TV and Cablevision in Harrison and Port Chester and will be telecast over the next month. The Wall story is being told in Manhattan and also in northern Westchester and in other places. Each chapter is 1/2 hour. Here's Tortious Act number 555 and number 556. When Glendora came home from editing, she went around the outside of her apartment to see her Christmas lights. She had put up to the 10 windows over 250 Christmas lights. As she came up the cellar stairs to the front hall, Roberta came down the hall stairs on her way down cellar. Roberta shouted and mocked something about on television. Her diction is so bad it is hard to understand what she is saying, but it was insulting and it wasn't an assault. Then she stopped on the third stair and shouted as loudly as she could to Glendora, "Idiot!" Glendora did not speak to her before this, during this, nor after this. Glendora put down her camera tripod, adjusted the light reading, zoomed out, and videotaped. This stopped Roberta's insulting and abusive language, and she went down cellar, out of sight and out of hearing. There was no legitimate purpose for this oral assault. This insulting, humiliating, and abusive language is actionable. It goes beyond all possible bounds of decency and is utterly intolerable in a civilized community. This is the guarantee of genuineness in the circumstances surrounding these intentional inflictions of emotional disturbance that proves the lawsuit for the plaintiff. Further, this and her husband's attack of Monday might show the lies and the bad faith of their lawyers' so-called answer and counterclaims. What has got into these people again? Is it the White Plains Police talking to them and telling them to reform? Has their lawyer dropped them after having read Glendora's affirmation in opposition to their so-called answer and refutation of their counterclaims? Have they seen themselves on television? Have others seen them on television? What are they off? Why are they off in the middle of a lawsuit and in the middle of the record on TV with more law-breaking and tortious behavior? Don't they ever learn? About Monday night and Daniel Walsh. Did not Daniel Walsh tell Eyewitness News on videotape? Did not you hear him say this? We wish she, Glendora, would get this lawsuit started. Well, he got the lawsuit he wanted. A fat envelope from General Accident Insurance came in Thursday. It's about Andrew Larkin, and I'll read that to you. December the 17th, 1993, Friday. This is the birthday of our Lincoln. Our Lincoln is 14 years ago. 14 years old. 14 years ago, I paid cash for him. On December 17th, 1979, Lincoln Continental Mark VI. Signature Series 351 engine. Windsor. It took 5 hours to sort out the wall tapes, to index them, to label them, to distribute them, and pack to edit the next group of them Tuesday in Manhattan. NBC TV gave Glendora a free spot on the network for Christmas. Wasn't that nice? This is a $1,500 spot, and they gave it to Glendora free. There will be 2 of them, the first sponsored by a Fortune 500 company. Poverty is hereditary. You get it from your children. We decorated the church in the evening, about 20 of us, and then we all ate. We had delicious food all around the kitchen table in the church kitchen. Now, on Saturday, the cellar door is left wide open, a dumb thing to do at 29 degrees. The time on wall today is 1.5 hours. Herbert, my financial state presently is liquid assets. Mother-in-law, meaning everything is going down the drain. Glendora read the law to make up for not reading it Thursday and Friday. We were left alone yesterday. That is the way it should be. People should not leave the cellar door wide open at 31 degrees. The Lincoln celebrates his 14th birthday Friday, 14 years ago, December 17, 1979, and he has 188,000 miles. The smoke alarm was chirping a little bit Saturday night. It chirped about 15 times over a quarter of an hour. Glendora heard some male voices in the hall, and when she looked out afterwards, the smoke alarm was gone. It was taken down off the wall. That is no good. We need a smoke alarm. The poor thing must be overwhelmed by all of the Salem cigarette smoke. A freighter carrying a load of yo-yos struck a reef off the coast of Florida and sunk 45 times. Sunday, there was a white gift service tonight at church and supper afterwards. We had a candlelight service. The angels went down the aisle and carrying a lighted candle, and then they lighted the candle of the person sitting in a pew next to the aisle, and then that person lighted the next person's candle, and so forth. So that brought on the White Plains firemen. There were 3 handsome White Plains firemen there to make sure that the fire stayed where it should. Now the Lord loves justice. Isaiah 61, 1-4, 8-11. Regard this, all of you concerned. First editing priority is to finish the wall What Happened logs November to December, then to do the wall videotaping, law breaking up to date. This is the actual videotaping of their breaking the law. The others are just telling about it, as this does. And just a few of those are left. And that was in November. And a wine truck collided with a cheese truck in Harrison, resulting in an instant fundraiser. Now this came to me from General Accident Insurance. They have that beautiful new building in Elmsford. Have you seen it in Greensburg? It's on 177 Hillside Avenue, just off of Terrytown Road. December 10th, 1993, Mr. and Mrs. Andrew Larkin, 21 Greenwich Avenue, apartment C1, White Plains, New York, 10605. Claim number so-and-so, insured Andrew and Patricia Larkin. Claimant, Glendora. Date of loss, April the 12th, 1993 to October the 31st, 93, and it's still going on. and the policy number. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Larkin, this shall acknowledge receipt of the Supreme Westchester summons. The Supreme Court, the Westchester Supreme Court summons and complaint in the matter of Glendora against Daniel Walsh, Roberta Walsh, James Walsh, Nella L. Pucci, Theo L. Pucci, Andrew Larkin, and Kevin Larkin. The above captioned matter was first reported to us on November 30th, 93 by A. Zeman Company. Please be advised that General Accident is hereby reserving their rights under the terms and conditions of your policy, and it gives the name of the policy effective November the 9th, 93 to November the 9th, 94. Do you think they made it? Just made it. The summons and complaint were served on November the 11th, 1993, so they just made it. Our rights are being reserved because of your possible failure to give us timely notice of the incident, because the allegations may not fall within the policy definition of occurrence, and for any other reasons that may now or hereafter apply. We call your attention to Section 2 conditions, and then they read all, they quote all that, which I'm sure you don't want to listen to. Please be advised that we will provide you with a defense of this matter under a reservation of rights. However, we will be unable to indemnify you for any judgment based on damages which are expected and intentional, or intended or otherwise not covered. Well, of course, all of these were intentional. All of these were expected, and all of these were intended. Subject to these conditions, General Accident Insurance Company of America will undertake an investigation in this matter. However, this act or any other act on the part of the company will not be construed as either a waiver of our policy provisions or rights thereunder. Should it be determined that you are not covered by this policy, it is understood that this company does not waive its rights or to deny coverage to you at a later date. Should our investigation reveal that the above policy provides the necessary coverage, we shall afford you the protection provided by the terms and conditions of said policy. This company will do whatever fairness requires, and we trust the matter can be disposed of to the satisfaction of everyone concerned. Well, if there's an investigation, and if they're going to contact Glendora, well, Glendora will insist, like a bill of particulars, that everything be in writing. The attorney designated below has been retained by us to defend you in the above lawsuit. Wilson, Bave, Comboy, and Bobby, 2 William Street, White Plains, New York, 914-686-9010. The lawsuit may not proceed to trial for some time. Boys, you ever write about that? It is imperative that you notify either this office or the office of Wilson so-and-so of any change in address. That's a good idea. Please do not discuss this incident with anyone other than a representative of this company or with the attorney's firm indicated above. Although the amount of damages sought are within the policy limit, it is possible for court to award an amount of damages which exceeds your policy limits. What are the policy limits? Enclosed, please find an affidavit of excess insurance. If this affidavit is incorrect, please sign, notarize, and return to us. If you maintain any excess insurance which would cover this loss, do not sign the enclosed affidavit. If you do have excess insurance, please provide us with the name, policy number, and address of that carrier. We shall advise you of the outcome of this investigation at the earliest possible time. Please contact Liz Bowden at 914-682-2335 immediately upon receipt of this letter. Very truly yours, Daniel J. Summer, Claim Manager, A. Zeman Company, Incorporated, and is sent to Glendora, Blendora. Okay, now this came with it. Supreme Court, County of Westchester, Glendora, plaintiff against Daniel Walsh, Roberta Walsh, James Walsh, Nella L. Pucci, Theo L. Pucci, Andrew Larkin, and Kevin Larkin, defendant, State of New York, County of blank, and it's left blank. This happens to be the County of Westchester. I, Patrick Larkin, who is Patrick Larkin, being duly sworn, deposes and says that I am the defendant in the above captioned matter, Glendora versus Daniel Walsh, etc. On April the 12th, 1993, I resided at 21 Greenwich Avenue, apartment C1, which was insured by General Accident Insurance Company. My policy limit applicable to this incident was $100,000 for any one accident. I did not have any excess insurance and above this general accident policy. The only insurance coverage I had applicable to this accident was the aforesaid general accident of policy. Any person who knowingly and with intent to defraud any insurance company or other person files a statement of claim containing any materially false information or conceals for the purpose of misleading information concerning any fact material thereto commits a fraudulent insurance act, which is a crime. And it has to be signed by Patrick Larkin, and nobody knows who Patrick Larkin is. Sworn to before me this day of blank of 19 blank. Okay. Everybody, my show always has a happy ending. Did you notice that? My show has a happy ending. Everybody's glad when it's over. And that's what happened with Glendora versus Walsh, Alpucci, and Larkin on the week of December the 13th, 1993. On Glendora versus Russell Brower, there still has been no decision from Judge Noka of the Yonkers City Court of the City of Yonkers. And on Glendora versus the Martial Arts Institute of America, the copy of the judgment was taken to Grand Marshal Kim, and then he was called the next day and the day after. And the last time he was called, Mr. Romano said that Grandmaster Kim had given Mr. Romano a check to mail. And that was on Friday, December the 17th. And Glendora asked how much was the check for. Was it for $110.52? He said he didn't know. It was in an envelope. Well, on December the 12th, 1993 at 2:25 p.m., my husband, Franklin Buell, stopped at the White Plains Post Office on Fisher Avenue. And he got out of the Lincoln, he left the motor running, and he left the key in the ignition, and he went 25 feet away to the mailbox on the curb, and he posted a letter, and he was gone about 25 seconds, and as he turned around and came back to the car, there was a thief getting into the car, and the thief drove it off. And Franklin went after the car and tried to deter the man from doing it. He saw the back of his head. He didn't see his face. He was a male. He was about 22 years of age. He was black, and he was about 5'10", and about 160 pounds. Franklin was badly bruised when he was thrown to the asphalt. He got several asphalt burns. And he went into the post office, and everybody there wanted to call an ambulance and send him to the hospital. And Franklin said that's not what he wanted to do. What he wanted to do was to call the White Plains Police. That was the smartest thing to do. And the White Plains Police came, and Officer Doherty, who is badge 81, was very attentive and very efficient and very good. And the ambulance came, Abby Richmond, and Franklin didn't want an ambulance, and he told the ambulance to go away, and he finally got rid of the ambulance. But then the White Plains Police did urge Franklin to go to the emergency room of the White Plains Hospital. Franklin did go. He had 7 stitches taken over the eyebrow, and he had 3 stitches taken on the lip, and he broke his tooth. In addition, when he got home later, I put on about 16 Band-Aids where he was burned on the hands and on the knee, and he hit his chest very hard on the pavement. The Officer Doherty was certainly a model policeman. He stayed with Franklin every minute at the emergency room, and he was solicitous. And Franklin called me and told me what happened, and I started immediately to try to find a car to rent. It was Sunday, And I called 10 rental car companies, and they just don't have it. They're just not together. It's terrible. And so then I started calling people at the church to see if anybody had a car, and told them that our car had been stolen, that we needed a car. And about 12 people said no. A lot of them don't answer. And the ones who did answer said no. And the 12th one was Irvin Graves. He's the moderator of our church. In the Congregational church, the congregation runs a church, and the congregation elects a moderator. And so he's our moderator, and he came down immediately. And that was a great source of comfort. And he took me to the emergency room of the White Plains Hospital, and that's the first time I saw Franklin, and he really looked bad. And Officer Doherty was with him. And Officer Doherty said that he wanted to take Franklin in the cruiser down to the Public Safety Building on 77 South Lexington Avenue, and he wanted to have Franklin talk to a detective to see if they could not find this culprit. And so that's what we did, and Irvin and I followed the police cruiser, and there were 2 other policemen in the cruiser. There were 3 policemen in the cruiser in Franklin. So we went to 77 South Lexington downstairs in the police place, and then Officer Doherty took us upstairs to the 2nd floor where the detectives are, and Detective DeFazio was there and Detective Conte. And Detective DeFazio interviewed Franklin for an hour, and Irv and I waited outside. And they put the theft of the car immediately on the hotline. And they expected to hear about the car immediately. I guess this hotline is very effective. Well, there was a witness. A witness had gone to the church there on Lexington Avenue, on Fisher Avenue between Lexington and Bank. And he had seen this happen, and then he said that the thief took off to the left. That would mean he went up the hill over by the Rochambeau School. I would be pretty certain that he'd hid for the Bronx River Parkway. Well, they notify the Westchester County Police, who do patrol the Bronx River Parkway. Not very well, but they do patrol it. They're usually parked together, talking to each other. So I think that's about it. And we brought Franklin home, and with hot baths and everything else, and hot cocoa and all that, made with riches, not made with milk. And I called up the White Plains Police several times that night, and they hadn't found the car. At approximately 7:50 a.m. Monday morning, December 13th, Officer Danziger called. And he was working with Officer Doherty. Officer Doherty went off at 4 p.m. Sunday, and they found the car. They found the 1980 Lincoln Mark VI Continental, 351 engine Windsor, in the Bronx. And they gave me the voucher number, and they gave me the telephone number of the tow company that had it. This turned out to be the wrong number. The number that I dialed and they had given me was disconnected. And fortunately, another call came in, and it was Officer Christopher Clark. I can't give you his badge number because in New York City, the badge numbers are about 6 digits long. And he told me that he had found the car at about 6:40 a.m. So that's a very good system they have, that hotline, isn't it? And he'd found it at 314 Echo Place in the Bronx, and that's near Jerome Avenue and 182nd Street. And he said the car was in pretty good shape. He's told about how the glove compartment had been cleaned out, and he didn't know about the trunk. And there were no keys in the car. And what else? Okay, he found out that he had given the White Plains Police the wrong number, and had given me the wrong number for the tow company, and he also given me the wrong tow company. So he called me back and told me the right tow company, and that's All Borough Towing, and they're on Jerome Avenue, 23-something Jerome Avenue, near 182nd. And he's Officer Christopher Clark is in the 46th Precinct in the Bronx. Okay, then what happened? Oh, the guy at the tow company gives me a hard time. He wants me to wait until 3 o'clock to come down and get the car. And I don't want, these are the shortest days of the year. It's dusk at 4 p.m. and I don't want to be in the Bronx after dark. And I called the 46th precinct. Officer Christopher Clark had to go home. He had already worked overtime for me. He'd been on since midnight, and then he was off for the next 2 days. So the people at the precinct were not helpful at all. They were pretty bad. And but I asked Detective DeFazio to tell this man, his name was Jerry, at Allboro Tow, that I wanted to get this done now, this morning, while it was daylight and sunny. And so, and then I had the problem of finding a rental car and having somebody bring the rental car to me. And the people at the Rent-A-Wreck in Eastchester, who used to be very good, John was there and was very good, and Eric was there and very good, they aren't good anymore. The person there, Roberta, is abusive and rude, and I made a recording of it, and I don't think Neil is at all as swift as Eric is. So finally they did get a rental car to me around 11 o'clock, and I had to pick up Franklin, and I had to go to the bank and take out $1,000 cash, because when you go to the Bronx you have to pay for everything. You get ripped off for everything. And the thief had taken the battery. So I had to stop and buy a new battery, and that was at White Plains Service at the corner of Fisher and Lexington. That's where they do a good job on the Lincoln. They really do a good job on the Lincoln. They do a good job on my check account too. And so I got this battery, and Neil drove me down to Eastchester, and we rented the car. And we went down the Diggin, and I stopped and filled it with gas. This time they actually had a half a tank of gas. Usually they have this much gas in the car when you rent it. But I filled it to the top, $9. I'd rather do that than worry about it. And so we went to the Bronx. Well, the Bronx policeman at the 46th precinct said to get off of Jerome, go down the Diggin, get off Jerome Avenue. The Jerome Avenue doesn't go across the Diggin. They must have been thinking of I-95. So we got off at Yankee Stadium, and then we went north on River Road, and finally we found Jerome Avenue, and we stayed with Jerome Avenue until we got to 182nd Street. And the 46th precinct is on Ryer, R-Y-E-R. And we went in to get the voucher, and the tow company had picked up the voucher. Well, Officer Reyes was very nice, and they were all pretty sympathetic. They were all pretty nice. Face to face, over the phone, they were nothing. And so that's good. So then we made our way over to Jerry's, Allboro Tow, and Jerry says, "Did you bring your camera?" And I said, "Yes." Oh, and I saw the Lincoln. Oh, it was so good to see it. Oh, it was so good. And the body did look good. The body hadn't been damaged. And Jerry says, "Did you bring your camera?" And I says, "Yes, I did." And I said, "Come out in the daylight and I'll take a picture of you." And so he gave me not too hard a time. And I paid him $50 for the towing. He towed it 2 blocks. And I paid him $10 for the storage. He stored it 6 hours. And then I said, "Are you going to put this battery in?" "No, no." He says, "Here's a mechanic." And the mechanic's name was Charlie. And he charged $15 to install the battery. See what I mean about being ripped off? And I gave Charlie some cookies, spice cookies that were covered with frosting, and he came back for more. And he got the battery in, and you know something? The Lincoln started right up and sounded beautiful. So the thief had not hurt the engine. And this 315 Echo Place where the Lincoln was found is a notorious car stripping place. That's where they take cars, it's a dead-end street, and they strip them. So the Lincoln just sounded just great. So we went back up the Diggin. We went up to up Jerome to Fordham Road, and across Fordham Road and north on the Diggin, and over the cross county and up the Bronx River. and we went back to Tuckahoo, where we rented the car, and we handed in the car. Now, we had that car 2 hours. We put in a half a tank of gas, as I told you, and they charged us $35 for that. Now, they could have made some kind of an allowance. That's $35 a day for the car, or $34, and they let it go for 2 hours at that. Now, that's Roberta, and that's Neil. So I am not as impressed with Rent-A-Wreck as I once was. John, who owns it now, is out in Great Neck. He has another one, and I guess he has another one out in Suffolk. And Eric is out there, too. Those two people I trust. But what happened down in Tuckahoo, Eastchester, on December the 13th, 93, Monday, is scandalous. Okay, so we brought the Lincoln up to the Scarsdale post office, and I opened the trunk for the first time, and guess what? The tire is missing. The wheel is missing. Now, the wheel on a Lincoln is an aluminum wheel, and it costs something like $300. The tire was a used tire. All the 4 tires elsewhere are new tires, a whole new set. They're Otsus, and I buy them from Jonathan Jaffis, who is a client of mine, Glendora TV ads. And worst of all, folks, this thief had taken the toolkit. The Lincoln Continental Mark VI 1980 came with a very elaborate toolkit. There was a Swiss Army knife with a Lincoln insignia on it. There was a tire gauge with a Lincoln insignia on it. There was a frock so that if you had to work on the car, you wouldn't get your clothes dirty. There were boosters, a very, very fine pair of boosters. There was a first aid kit in it. There was a screwdriver, a Phillips and the regular kind. There were all kinds of flares to put on top of the car, put out on the road in front of the car and behind the car, something to put on the roof, a light to tell people that the car was disabled, and so forth. It was a very elaborate toolkit, and it was worth about $200, and even then, back in 1980, people were stealing those left and right. They didn't steal the car necessarily, but they stole the toolkit. But I had mine, and it meant a lot to me, and but it was stolen by this thief, this bum. And the glove compartment had been cleared out. All of the audio cassettes were gone, and there was about $6 worth of quarters and change, and of course, that was all stolen. Well, so we got back to White Plains around about 4:30 Monday, December the 13th, and were able to do some errands. Now, this whole thing was at a cost of 37 hours. This is what it cost, 37 hours. The total cost of getting everything back into shape that you could was about $500 or $600. And then I want to read you the letters that I wrote